Today I'm going to diagnose some idling issues that I've had on my 1988 Dodge Dakota. Whenever I start it up, the idle goes real high and then it doesn't come back down. And I've done this problem before where the idle air control or the throttle kicker, which is this thing, and it rests right here to push on the throttle whenever you start the truck to get it to idle speed, or whenever there's a load on the engine like the air compressor or the coolant compressor kicking in, it'll give it a little bit of a punch. Well, mine's been sticking again. There's a bunch of gears inside here, and what tends to happen is the grease gets really dry and they can't turn properly, so it'll get stuck in the fully open position and it won't come back down. And a quick fix is to tap on it lightly with a small hammer and it usually will get unstuck. But you can either buy a new one, which are fairly expensive, or you can try rebuilding these. And since I've done it once already, I'm going to do it again because it's not all that difficult. There's a bracket on the side of the throttle body that has 3 Torx screws, which I will show you later, to release this thing, and it's held on by these 3 points right here. So what you have to do is there's 8mm nuts right here with washers on the bracket, and you pull those off and then you can get to these, and these I've had loose, so you just unscrew them. Pardon the dark camera, one of them is stuck. Alright, once you get these screws out, you have to take the bolt out that sets the idle speed. Now you'll want to measure this because the length of it is what sets the idle speed on the engine. If you get it too short, the engine won't run right. If you get it too long, it'll idle too high. So just get out a measuring tape and measure it. I've measured mine at 1.25 inches, and all you have to do is just unscrew this until it comes out. Right there. And then the top of it should just lift off like this. Just be careful not to damage this boot right here, because it keeps all the dust and the crap out of the gear assembly. So here's what it looks like on the inside. So you have 3 gears. This is the motor, this is the intermediate, and this is the shaft that moves back and forth. So you can gingerly pull these out like that. And then the big one comes out, and be careful because there's a contact washer in here that tells the throttle kicker what position it's in. And if you notice, mine is pretty worn. You can sometimes get away with flipping them over to get a little more life out of them, but I'm gonna have to find one of these wafer thin washers. Something a little thicker might work. You'll just have to readjust this. You can see there's 2 adjustments. There's the gear on the shaft, and there's also the little bolt that goes on the end of it. So you want to kind of get a intermediate on both of them so you don't have the bolt run way out at the tip. And I'm going to readjust mine because I made that mistake the first time and it was just barely enough to go in there. So when you get in here, you got a lot of electricals. You can see they get quite dirty, and there's the dried grease down in there that's causing issues. And there's a contact right here that, see if it'll see it, not too well, but that tends to get carboned up from arcing, so using a little piece of sandpaper and wedging it in there to clean that up will cause it to be able to sense properly again, as well as these points right here. They got a lot of carbon on them, so I'm going to clean all this up and I'll be back in a minute. Alright, I got it all cleaned up and ready to put back together. cleaned up the washer, readjusted the gear shaft. In order to put it back in right, you have to put the gear shaft in first. Then you put the intermediate gear in there. And then the gear for the motor. And there's a key on here, so you have to get that in there, right? Oops. It's an awkwardly shaped part, so it's kind of hard to camera and work on this at the same time. But I think the gear is like that. Come on. There we go. And then the lid right here, you can see there's little indentations for the top of the gears. So you have to get those in just right. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Alright. I managed to get the shaft out a little farther, and what I had to do is what I didn't think I'd have to do is you turn the gear on the screw all the way towards the bottom, and there's a little spring at the bottom, and you just put a little tension on there and you can get this part to come out a little more. And I was able to get this screw to go in a lot further. If you see where this bright part is, that's originally where it was a few years ago before I took it apart the first time. So I got close to it, but I'm not completely there. And I don't want to completely bottom it out just in case it decides to want to strip it out, so it has a little bit of play at least. I'm going to put this back together, and then I'll show you once I'm done how to put it back on the truck. Alright, I got it all ready to go back on the truck. So the bracket is this thing, and if you can imagine the throttle body is like right here. You have two torque screws, one right here, one right there. And you also have one hidden right down here. We can go and show you how they go on the truck. So I forgot to mention these, both of these, this nut and this long weird screw are 5/16. So, and the let's see, I'm not sure what size these are. Let me look. Oops. Looks like it's a T30 maybe. So see if we can. What did I do with that screwdriver? Oh, there it is. Get this ready to go back on. And let's put something over the intake because you don't want screws going down in there. So basically, there's an electrical connection right here. It's 4 pins. It basically goes right here. So I can push it on there. But basically it goes like that. You can see the screws are lining up. I'm gonna have to shut you down real quick while I put these in. I'll be right back. Alright, I got it back on. It looks like it's pretty far advanced, so it might be kind of loud when it turns on. And she won't run quite right because there's some open vacuum lines to the engine. But I don't want to put the airbox back on until I verify that it's running right. So let's start it up, see what happens. alternator compressor is kind of loud. It's a scroll compressor. So when it turns off, let's see if this thing moves right. See how sensitive this thing is to vacuum leak. You can change the idle just by opening this vacuum line. Yeah, let me go turn it down. Sorry, I couldn't show you it actuating. It's too damn hot right now. Well, that's about it for that. I'll do another video on vacuum lines since I've seen a lot of people asking about that. So I'll have that up here and probably a double video with this one.